G'day everyone, welcome back to the shed. Today's an exciting one because today we're talking about power mods. So more specifically, we're talking about power mods for the 2024 CRF450RL. So what we're going to be doing today is a stage 1 tune, it's called, and everything today has been provided by Triple S Motorcycles in Tamworth, New South Wales. Some of you are probably thinking, stage 1, what does that involve? Well, over on the bench over here, we have everything you need for a stage 1 tune. It's not much, it's only a few components, but it's going to completely transform the bike. So here we have my standard ECU. I took that off the bike and I mailed that into Triple S Motorcycles. They have flashed it with a new tune. These need to work together. This is a, de-restricted intake boot for the 450RL motor. By standard, everywhere I think other than the United States, the boot on the motorcycle as standard is extremely restrictive, and I'll show you what that looks like when I take it off the bike. So essentially we're not really going to be doing a whole lot today. It's actually pretty straightforward. ECU, intake boot, I'll show you how it's done. Let's get stuck into it. Alright, so there we have it. So this is the replacement intake boot that comes with your tune from Triple S. Not much to see there, straight through. This is what comes off the bike. Have a look at that. Can you see the difference? Alright, so what do we do on the bike? Very quickly. Some of your cables will have cable ties and whatever else. Just loosen those off. There's 2 bolts here on each side. You want to take the top one out completely and you want to loosen the lower. So do that on both sides after you've taken all the plastics off, obviously. And then from there, you'll just be able to push down on the tail of the bike and that subframe will pivot away and swing away from the main frame. And then looking down there, that's where you can access the intake boot. You may need to loosen the tank. I had to. There's just 3 bolts, 2 at the bottom, 1 at the top, and you better lift up out of the way. Just the way that they have some of those hose clamps fitted and orientated, you may need to loosen that tank. But it's taken me 15 minutes. We're into it. We're gonna pop the new boot back on and install the ECU. And for those that don't know, the ECU just sits in here. So I've had to remove the little cage that normally sits in. But as we start buttoning it back up, I'll show how all that goes together. One thing I did forget to mention is that I did remove this bolt here, which is for the exhaust hanger, and that just allows that subframe to drop down without having to put any sort of flex or pressure on that exhaust pipe running down there. Alrighty, so there we have the intake boot all buttoned up. If you can see down in there, that's all installed and tightened up. Tank's tightened up. We've got the ECU prepped and ready to go, so we're going to slot that in just here, and I'll bring you back. All right, so to get the most out of this tune and get as much power out of that stage 1 as we can, we've got a couple more things that need to be done. So come over to the Airbox. We need to remove the Airbox cover or snorkel. So normally I'll show you in just a sec. Normally there's a cover that goes over the top with a small opening, which restricts the Airbox. So we want to remove that. And the air filter itself, you'll just need to undo that little wing nut down there, take that out, and inside it there's a cage that does restrict the flow of air a little bit. So we can remove that cage and it comes out real easy. And everything we do here can be reversed if you wanted to. So we're not cutting and hacking and drilling at stuff. We're simply just removing it and freeing it up. So over on the bench here, this is the cage inside that air filter I was talking about. And it's got these little tabs on the sides. So all you really have to do is just bend those tabs out of the way and that lifts out. And then we've got our Airbox cover here. So this is what was sitting on the top here. So remove that, bang. That's all the Airbox mods we need to do, pretty straightforward. We're not done though. So over here, we have the pair system. So it's spelled pair, P-A-I-R, not pear the fruit. And basically what this does, this is all to do with emissions. So this injects a puff of air and it helps to burn off any unburnt fuel. So purely emissions, not performance related as far as giving you any additional performance. So you want to get that out of here, because the tune as it's is done by Triple S motorcycles doesn't need this system, and it can be unplugged without throwing up an error code. So I forgot to mention too, this is the ECU back in place, and there's that sort of cage I was talking about with the bracket. So that's back all where it needs to be, which is good. But our focus now is down here. So there's not much holding it in. We've got a couple of bolts here that need to come out, and then we're going to need to plug up a couple of lines. So there's going to be one coming off the engine here, like a little spigot, that will need to be blocked off. And then coming out of the top of this pair system, we've got the tube, where is it? The pipe at the back here. It runs along to the airbox, and that's it there. So we need to disconnect and cap that one off as well, and then we can remove this whole unit. Alright, so it is a bit of a fiddly job, but we have the pair unit removed now, which is good. So this is what it looks like off of the bike with all the plumbing removed from it. So there's not really a lot going on here. 2 bolts holding it on. What we've got left over is our electrical connector, which was for the pair unit. That is unplugged. We have our O2 sensor. We'll get to that in just a moment. And we have our other wiring for our thermostat down here. So to cap it off, I've reused that little bit of hose and temporarily just capped it off with a bolt and some electrical tape. Similar sort of thing as over here. Just popped a little, like an M8 bolt in there with some electrical tape just to create a bit of a seal, and use the factory hose clamp to put that on. One last thing we have to do before we start tidying things up and putting it all back together is this O2 sensor. So this needs to be disconnected from the motorcycle for the Triple S tune to work the way it's designed. So we'll remove that. I'm going to tidy up some of these wires and put everything back together. I do have a proper pair removal block off kit coming, but that hasn't arrived yet today. And it is a sunny day, and there's exactly 0% chance of me staying indoors waiting for that to arrive. So we're going to get this put back together and we're going to hit the trails. All right, so last look at this before the cover goes on. I've just gone ahead and taped off all those connectors just to keep them protected in case we decide to plug anything back in the future. Also, just make sure when you're doing this, keep everything away from the radiator. You don't want to have anything that could potentially hit up against that and damage those fins or wear through them as well. The O2 is nice and tucked up as well. All right, everything's been done. We've done the Airbox mods, we've done the pair removal and block off. We've removed, we've disconnected the O2 sensor. We've fitted the restricted boot, and we've installed the reflashed ECU. Let's start it up. This is a cold start, so this will be interesting. Actually, one thing I did discover the other day, which is totally news to me for a fuel-injected motorcycle, it's got a choke. Really cold morning here. All right, we're gonna let that warm up and get into it.
All right, so having spent quite a bit of time now with this bike and the new tune, I've put on about 500 kilometers, and most of that just being off-road conditions, not a whole lot of road riding, a little bit of highway stuff, but yeah, mostly just in the dirt, in the bush, getting after it. And I've got to say, this is a different bike now. Like, it's staggering what this bike is like standard, and then with a decent tune, it's just a whole nother thing. There's no real comparison between the two. I hate to think how many people buy this bike stock and never go through the process of getting an ECU tune for it, because you just don't even scratch the surface. Like, this thing pulls so hard absolutely everywhere. Now, given they have to put about 500 Ks onto it, there is one modification I did. I did add a throttle tamer. I found before, without that throttle tamer, it was just too jumpy. It was all over the place. You could ride it without it. I'm not saying you have to have it, but having the throttle tamer makes that power a lot more accessible, and you can just modulate it so much easier. Before, it was kind of like you're just walking everywhere on a balancing beam. It was just like, you could kind of coast, but it's very hard to just sort of add, I guess, a little bit of power. It was either on or off. And so the throttle tamer just basically solves that issue. So you still got all the power there. So you still got a really sharp tune, but you can just modulate it a little bit better. So if you're on the fence about getting a tune for this bike, honestly, don't even consider any other option. You just got to do it. And whether that's through Triple S Motorcycles or your local guy or whatever, the fact remains the same. A tune on this bike is essential. It just pulls so hard, and it's just so much fun. Now, it hasn't completely changed every characteristic of the bike. I do find sometimes I stall it quite easy, and that's just basically having a lightweight, essentially a race motor. There's not a lot of like centrifugal mass going on, so it does stall easy given that it's a single, and that's a characteristic of a lot of these big singles. They will stall. So I'm going to be doing another modification for that later on, adding some weights to the flywheel to give it a little bit more of a tractor factor. But as far as the tune goes, chef's kiss. Chef's kiss, it's so good. This is just one of those mods where you just honestly don't have to think about it. One annoying thing with the tune, which I've spoken to the guys at Triple S, and it's just an error with the coding on the ECU, and they're going to fix it for me. But that engine light has been on the whole time ever since I got the ECU reflashed. So even though you can see it on my bike now, if you go through them and get your tune, that won't be the case. That's just a one-off. So it's totally different. And I'll put the power curve from Triple S from the dyno sheet for the stage 1, stage 2, and what the standard bike is like up on the screen now. And if you have a look at that stock power curve, and then you look at the stage 1 power curve above it, I mean, if someone told you that they were two different motorcycles, you'd believe them. There's almost nothing the same about those two power curves, both in the power that it makes down low, top end, the rate at which the horsepower climbs. It's chalk and cheese. There is no similarity between the two. I don't think I've ever seen such a drastic horsepower increase on anything as a result of just an ECU reflash and a larger intake boot. It's just crazy. But I guess that's the world we live in these days with emissions. They're all choked up, and you've got to take it upon yourself to get the potential out of the motorcycle. So to say that I'm happy with the tune would be a complete understatement. Whoa. So there you have it, guys. I'm just going to keep ripping it through the bush here and just have an absolute day of it, because the sun is shining and I'm going to get after it. So yeah, if you're on the fence about the tune, honestly, don't. I know it stings sometimes to spend a bit of money, because bikes are expensive, the gear, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes it feels like it's endless. But as far as bang for buck and something that's completely changed your ride, this is just a massive step forward. And I encourage anyone who has this bike to take the leap. Don't sell it if you're discouraged or disillusioned. It's a fantastic motorcycle, but unfortunately You're gonna have to take it upon yourself to get the potential out of it. That's enough waffling from me. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.